Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside co-host Jay Gonzales. And now on the phone we have Carrie Cecil. How are you, Carrie? We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah. Well, it's a little weird. I don't usually sound like Lauren Hutton, but it's been a busy 48 hours.
We were going to say, you must have been crazy busy given what you do, and you can explain what you do, because you're kind of like bouncing all over the world via Zoom, probably.
Yeah, everybody's zooming their lives away in COVID, not just me. I do very high-level, high-stakes crisis communications and litigation communications for a lot of different entities, from Sony to Comcast to the NCAA to conferences and commissioners and head coaches and all kinds of folks. So it's been a busy time for me on the athletic side of our business, particularly in the college athletics space, and multiple variables that have been up in the air due to the pandemic.
Hi, Carrie.
Health crisis.
Hi, Carrie. This is Jay. How are you?
Oh, hi, Jay.
It's been a while.
I missed you at the Sugar Skull.
I hope the Sugar Skulls missed me too. So let me ask you. There's so much going on, and the dealing with the media and the communication angle of all of this as it relates to conferences and schools and the NCAA and coaches. But what has been your overall take in terms of how they're all handling this? You've got such a division of opinions of what's going on, but what's your opinion about the way things have been coming out, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mine is not to question, mine is to execute.
Okay.
I try not to have a whole lot of opinions. I like to say that I'm pandemic plan agnostic. So, everybody is. I feel like it's a reflection of our country. Whether it's the protocols are divided based on what people believe to be true. So
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but when you see something like, for instance, I'll just use an example. And look, I'm a longtime media PR guy as well. The Pac-12, they did their news conference. One of the big points they made in the news conference was this was a unanimous decision. Well, it obviously wasn't unanimous in the Big Ten, because as soon as it came out, Nebraska started looking for a place to play. So, is there an opportunity to work with groups like that to advise them on how to deal with that stuff? And when you have a Nebraska that goes off the plan, how do you help them with that?
Who am I helping?
Let's say the Big Ten, because they had a school that just. Let's say the Big Ten, because they had a.
Who's writing the check? Is Nebraska writing the check?
I'm guessing if you're working for the Big Ten and you've got a rogue school like Nebraska saying, "Well, we're going to go find somebody to play," what's your advice to those guys? I'd take it a step back. So I think that Commissioner Warren, as well as Commissioner Scott, with their institution presidents and the advice of experts, and it wasn't an easy decision. The Big Ten announcement and what we would categorize, off the books as what I would think would be a preliminary polling of voting. Showed a couple different schools, I think Iowa and Nebraska, that were opposed to postponing the season, and that leaked. And it leaked, and so for 24 to 48 hours, what we saw was the ability of a one-sided, really, depending on how you look at it, uninformed, because they didn't have the information about why decisions were being made, mob on social media, gang up on them. And I had many national journalists say to me, I don't know how they do it. And is the Pac-12 going to follow, and all those types of things. So helping them would have been maybe coming out swinging a little bit stronger from the get-go about the health and safety rationale the information, particularly in the Big Ten, about myocarditis and their experience with that. And I mean, let's not forget that the Northwestern football coach, who was the Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2020, Randy Walker, died at 52 years old after having myocarditis for 2 years. So you have, Maryland, who lost a student athlete on their campus. So you have people that are, really understand the health and safety issues when it comes to student athletes and coaches and staff. So, I think I would have come out swinging a little stronger, and I would have come out earlier. I think they just waited too long. And, and now it's really, you're seeing some schools get in line, and it's not, like when Mr. Delaney was there, where he may have been a little bit more aggressive with the schools like Nebraska, and what they can and cannot do. And about playing outside the conference, it's all in the fine print. The devil's in the details, as they say. But there's reasons there's contracts and there's $50 million in TV money. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Right. Well, you have 2 of the Big 5 out now as of yesterday. 3 others still out there trying to hold against hope.
Yeah.
You think there could be a 5 for 5 eventually?
I think here's what I look at. The reality is, what is, what's common and about and easy, and what is divided with the schools. Why are some schools opting in and some schools opting out, right? So, I think the commonality between all of the Power 5 conferences is the health and safety of their kids. Mm-hmm. And I think they're all highly disappointed because they know, ideally we all want to see football. There's no one, everybody says there's no one who wants to see it more than me, but trust me, I got a lot of skin in the game. So, and so I think that both the decision to play or not to play, or the likelihood of bringing, kids on to play is catastrophic. It could have catastrophic results. Take Texas, right? If they don't play, if the Big 12 doesn't play, I'm really bad at math, but I think the revenue for the athletic department is somewhere around $20 million, and I think about 150 of that comes from football. So if they don't play, that's 70% of their income. That puts them at about that's $137 million in the hole. So you have schools like Utah, like Mark Harlan, who's amazing at saying, they're going to take a hit from football, right. $50 million. So there's, whether it's the fiscal sides, right, or the health and safety, I think they all recognize that it's not a good deal, right? But I think the divide comes from, for the SEC, who, it's haves and have-nots. There's a lot of, we're going to test 2 times a week during competition. We may have a third test and rapid results. They can fly private. Are they testing their airline pilots? What do they do when a kid gets a fever on the road of 104? Do they life flight them home? They have the ability to clean their facilities with electrostatic backpacks and these fancy bipolarization technology that go in their, HVAC units. So, it's the haves and the have-nots. I talked to someone in the SEC today, a coach who just said, this is different. This is the SEC. They'll find the money to play. And if you look at the NFL and you look at the NBA, they're testing every single day. Right. I don't know how you do that cost-wise in the Power 5. I just don't. And then for every kid who gets positive tests, you've got to now put them through these special MRIs for the myocarditis, and those are $4,000 a pop. There's just so many risks and unknowns about this virus that we should all be mad at the virus. Don't be mad at the AD. Don't be mad at the president. Don't be mad at the commissioner.
Don't be mad at the doctors.
Don't be mad at the doctors, right? They don't want to call. Nobody wants to call it a season, right? And then everybody who's playing, are they going to be liable in 2025? Are we going to see a commercial that says, hey, are you obese? Do you have diabetes?
does your heart beat too much? You have shortness of breath. Did you play football in 2020? You may have myocarditis. Call this number.
Right.
You have to think about health and safety first, which I think is what they're all doing, liability, and then what do we do to mitigate risk, and how do we do that safely? So, we shall see whether all the dominoes fall. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. And, I think one of the puzzling things that we've all talked about is, how is it, why is the information different in different parts of the country? And it's stunning to me that nobody was able to pull it together and say we all should be listening to the same people, right? And figuring it out that way.
Well, there are guidelines, right? So every conference, I'm on Zoom calls with conferences. I'm on Zoom calls with coaches. I'm on Zoom calls with the parents of players. I'm on Zoom calls with the medical teams. I'm on Zoom calls with task force. And there are very universal standards because I have 20 pages of Q&A for, athletic directors or institution presidents that, okay, well, what are you doing to clean that? Or how are we traveling this? And in the testing, there's certain things they're all following. So I agree with you that, but there's CDC guidelines, right? There's even the NFL. Okay, so take the NFL today. I think that they came out and informed all the clubs that they needed to test every single day, tier 1 and tier 2 personnel, and for the first 2 weeks of training camp, and it had to be less than 1% positive to continue. So how do you do that in college athletics without a bubble? And they're really there's no real bubble when you have students, right? They're students. They're not professional athletes. It's not like, the Ultimate Fighting Championship where Dana White went and bought a island in Abu Dhabi. No, he did. He bought an island.
Oh, I know.
The onset of coronavirus. He was like, what are we going to do? And he's like, and everybody thinks he's crazy. And he's like, let's buy an island. and, and it becomes Fight Island. That is a real bubble.
Yeah.
NFL players go and NBA players go home to their wives. They stay in a bubble. They understand, and these are kids that, on multiple calls, we've called it the year of the house party.
Yeah. Because
you're not going to see the fraternity parties and sorority parties, and you're not going to have the bars open. But so it's going to be the year of the house party. And so, it's just tough for, my heart just breaks for so many of these stakeholders that are getting, arrows shot at them. Right.
Right,
Carrie,
exactly.
Carrie, thanks a bunch for joining us.
Carrie, that was some great insight right there. We do really appreciate it. It's just been a nutty time, and it's sure a nutty time for you, and I think you're probably going to be a little busier for a while.
Oh, well, the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as my grandma used to say. So y'all bear down.
All right.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks so much, Carrie.
Have a great weekend and keep supporting our cat.
And give our best to your husband, whoever he is.
Of course. I'm going to go in and give him a big kiss. He just I will.
Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to our show today. For Jay and Steve, we'll be back tomorrow.
We'll see you.